how to do a CMYK colour wheel. So we've got our blank. Now what you're seeing here, it does say Pantones, but it's CMYK and it says uncoated. So this would be colours for paper that doesn't have a shiny surface. So you could pick the uncoated one or you could pick the coated one. I don't mind. I'll just turn that off because that's probably a bit confusing. So where did I get these from? I'll talk to you about that. But the first thing before you start is that you've just been told by me that you're working in CMYK. So the very first thing you've got to do is go to your File menu, go to your Document Setup and just make sure that it is in CMYK. So it's definitely not going to be as bright as the colours you pick in RGB mode, which we'll do in a minute. So it's CMYK colour. Now we could pick colours from just the normal swatches here, but normally these ones are in RGB, not in CMYK. So what we want to do is try using one of the colour books, because remember, we want more specific colours. So to find that, I'll switch it off. To find it, go, and also to get the swatches up. If you haven't got this up, you also need this up. So if you go to the window palette, you can find your colour books. You can find swatch libraries. So swatch libraries is what it says. It gives you a whole bunch of swatches. Now these are things you can access at any stage and they'll bring up a particular set of colours for you. So there are some wonderful presets. So if you had, you know, a job that you had to do for a client and they wanted something a bit beachy, then great, you know, you could get that straight away and, you know, no problem. So let me just want to double check that I'm recording. Oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I am recording. Sorry, just wanted to check. Okay, so so the window swatches. So you've got swatches that just brings up that actual palette there, which is like a default set. But when you want something more specific, like beach colours, for example, then you're going to these swatch libraries. So if the job's all about nature, you might go here. Earth tones, corporate, you know, they're all different. But where we're going at the moment is into this colour books, and this is where you access all the Pantone colours. So just go and find window. So open swatches, because that's useful to have, because you might want to, they're like the palette you can use while you're working on a job. And swatch libraries, again, you've got all sorts of libraries there, but the one we want to use is specifically in colour books. So when we go into TAFE in class, I'll be showing you this one. I use this a lot, Colour Bridge, because it has Pantones, solid Pantones, and next to it the CMYK equivalent. So it's a good one to use. These ones called solid coated and uncoated, they're just straight Pantone colours. So they're those beautiful bright colours that are unmixable and you really can't create them from cyan, magenta, yellow and black. So there's a big difference. So if you want Pantones that aren't mixed from cyan, magenta, yellow and black, you can use these solid coated and uncoated, or you can work with Colour Bridge. But right now we're going to do a CMYK one, so we want to just look at colours from CMYK coated or uncoated. So the difference between those is that coated just refers to the stock you're printing it on. So colours will look a little bit brighter and pop a bit more on a coated surface. That's a surface that's got a little bit of a sheen to it. And that sheen goes all the way from sort of just there to right up to really glossy. Uncoated is really just the paper itself with nothing on it, so it's really matte. So the colours will be quite a bit flatter on that paper, and that's why there's two books to try and show you And you'll notice that that's the same for all of the colour books, coded and uncoded. So just to show you and be able to show the client how it would look on each kind of different sort of general two types of stock. Let's go for the slightly brighter looking ones, the Pantone coated, but I don't mind, you can pick either. And this will give you a whole lot of swatches. So if you just grab the corner there, sorry, the bottom of it, you can open it up and you can scroll up and down. Thousands of colours to choose from, and they're all colours that will print using just these 4 process colours. So see, these are the 4 process colours. So that yellow, you could actually use a process yellow, or you might decide you want to start with a yellow that's slightly more golden, so you might move down to that one. Again, a bit of your choice. That's probably closer to what you normally see as the standard kind of yellow when you're mixing paints. So you could try starting with that one. A little bit of your own eye to work here, and then just have a look across at your the sample that you were given. Now I've got to find it. Where has it gone? Yeah, the finished one. Sorry, I'll have to pull it back up. So just have a look at your sample one, and you can see the next colour next to it is a kind of a yellowy green, and that's because it's halfway in between. So if you look at this and look at the 3 sort of corners in a triangle, those are your primary colours. So I would put those in first. And you'll notice the CMYK version of the primary colour is a lot more magenta-ish than on an RGB one, or indeed when you're mixing coloured paints. So it really is cyan, magenta, and yellow. So you can actually just use the process colours there. So go back to your blank and start with those. So the process colours are easy to see because they'll be sitting at the top. Here, I'll just bring that across. So see they're sitting there. So that's your yellow, process yellow. And you'll get to know that, I'll just shut some of these things. You'll get to know those terms. So when we talk about process colours, all the other colours are being mixed from these 4. From yellow, so from cyan, magenta, yellow, and the key colour, black, K. So on the equidistance, like the triangle, put your, sorry, not getting the right one there. Was it not selecting? Yeah, so there it is. So select that and put your cyan. Oh, no, sorry, was it the magenta was over there? Sorry, magenta over there, and your cyan here. So they're your primaries in terms of CMYK. Did I do that right? I should have a look myself. Yes, so that's right. Okay, so you've done these ones that are on the triangle. Now the next thing to do is to find those sort of steps in between. So this one is really halfway. So it's a half and half, what we call a secondary colour. So it's a mixture of those 2 together. So do this one next, and then the other 2 steps in between are meant to be steps in between. So you're looking for a mixture of yellow and cyan. So see if you can mix, sort of try those colours, because that's the next step. So go to your blank. And so we want sort of a halfway between yellow and blue. So use your own judgment about which blue that would be. I might just drag that off so we can look at it and see what you think. So what's a good match for that? What do you think is kind of a mixture of yellow and blue? And you can see that this one is, I'll just zoom up so you can sort of see it a bit better. This one is definitely a bluey green because it's in between. So it's step in between the straight yellow and green, and you can see this green is more yellowy in it. So just go round and try and match what you're seeing in the sample. It doesn't have to be exact, it's your version of it. But remember, you know, this is the primary blue, and then it's mixed with yellow to get this step here, which is definitely green, but then you've got a blue-green and a yellow-green either side. So do the step that you think is a mixture of the green, the cyan and the yellow. So it's definitely a green, and then find a yellow-green and a blue-green either side. Does that make sense? And you're just going to work from this palette. So, you know, use your own judgment here a little bit. See what you can see. Some of these are definitely on the yellow-green. So just looking at what they've got, I can see something kind of similar, but it's definitely a yellow-green, and there are a few different variations down here. You can see some are lighter, some are darker. So whereas this one, which is really half and half green, is probably sitting more up here. So it might be one of those. It's definitely a green. So that's the one I picked there. It's pretty close. But just use your own judgment to pick. So maybe up here is closer. Yeah, they're kind of pretty close. That's probably that one, actually. So you can see that's what has been chosen in this sample. But any of those would probably work just as well. And then the yellow-green we know is down here. And the bluey green, which has more blue in it, is going to be further down in the blues. So again, have a look down here. So then we're looking more at a kind of a, it's not the same as it's not as bright as your cyan. It's got some green in it. So it's going to be somewhere in this range in the blue greens. So pick one of those you think is close to what you're seeing. Remember, you don't have to match it perfectly, but, you know, see that one I picked slightly darker, but it's pretty similar. That one's slightly lighter, or I might go to a different row, try a different one. That's a bit too desaturated. So while you're doing this, you're kind of getting, I reckon it's that one. That's it. So while you're doing this, you're kind of getting a sense of how to select colours. And the other thing you can do to once you've selected some is you'll see that they get automatically added into your swatches. So that way you can kind of pick a couple and you can kind of go between them in here without having to go and fetch and go back. You can't remember where you were. Don't worry, they'll automatically turn up here. And you can see I had a couple of different alternatives for the yellow and green, and I've gone for that one, which I think is closer. So try it out, and you just got to go through it bit by bit. It's the same principle when you've got your primary magenta. So notice it's with CMYK, it's a magenta rather than a red. So when we do the RGB, you see we go back to red. But with CMYK, remember it's pigments. So the process printing colours are always these standard ones, and a true red has to be mixed differently. So it's going to have more black in it. It's somewhere down in here. It's not the process ink. So there isn't really a red in the process colours. However, you get a red through mixtures of the magenta with yellows. So you can see you get the whole colour range, but primary in terms of CMYK is actually a magenta. And we're talking about commercial printing process colours. So whenever you see the word process, if somebody starts talking about process colours, they're talking about these 4 colours, and what you're looking at here is a tremendous mixture of those to get this huge range of colours, which is what you're seeing on a printing press. Every time you pick up a magazine or a brochure, it's going to be using these process colours And it's very cheap because you only have 4 plates to get all these colours. So that's the CMYK coated or uncoated. It doesn't matter which one you use. Whoops, accidentally did that. Okay, so on the other side, you've got your magenta and you've got colours, you know, in between. And first of all, again, figure out the colour that's really half and half. So it's going to be this nice violet. And then you're going to look for a warmer version of that and a cooler version of that. And again, use your own judgment, go up and down the palette. So don't mix and match the coated and uncoated though. Stick with one or the other so you're getting consistent colours. I'm in the uncoated one here, but you just pick coated or uncoated. And again, you know, go through until you kind of get one you think is that halfway mixture. So I'm pretty close to it. Yeah, not too bad. Maybe it's that one. And I can step between them, and either of those would probably be all right. I reckon it's a pretty good approximation of a halfway point in terms of half blue and half violet. And then look for one that has a bit more blue, so it's going to be sitting down here. It's obviously got a little bit more blue in it. Keep going till you down the blues till you find one you think is kind of halfway between that true violet and the cyan. So it's going to be somewhere in here that you're looking. So using your own judgment about which one of those you pick. If you want it slightly more blue, you'd go further down here. And just pick what you think. As you go down here, it's really blue and looking much closer to the cyan. So that's not what we want. We want it halfway. So you might be up here somewhere. Yeah, so see, that's pretty close to what they had. And again, you can click on a couple of them and get them up here in the swatches and just see what you've got. And then the other way around is the halfway point between the magenta and the violet. So it's obviously got a lot more red in it. So you go up and look up here for something that's got that tonality. And then exactly the same, when you're stepping back towards yellow, you need to get to the halfway point, which is an orange, and then get a yellower orange and a much warmer orange that's closer to the magenta. So I think that's probably enough to get you going on it. So I'll stop recording and just see how you're all going. So as long as you've got the right palette and that you do check that you are, under the file menu, you are working in CMYK mode. And that way, at least on screen, you're getting as close as possible representation on the screen, even though the screen's still showing us RGB colours. Okay, so how is everybody going with it?
Good.
I'll stop recording for a sec.